All right, so let's start with the big story that we are tracking on WION at this hour. Vowing to stand by the people of Hong Kong against the Chinese crackdown, Britain is ready to launch a new visa scheme, potentially benefiting millions. Now, starting from the 31st of January, the holders of the British National Overseas Status will be able to apply and live and work in the United Kingdom for at least a period of about 5 years. And they can also eventually, through this route, seek citizenship of the United Kingdom. The new visa path opens up entry to Britain to an estimated 2.9 million adults in Hong Kong and also another 2.3 million people of their dependents. Now, before the change, the BN passport holders have had only limited rights to visit the United Kingdom for up to 6 months and not to work or settle. Now, any Hong Kong resident born before 1997 is eligible for the BN status. But China has said that it will no longer recognize the British National Overseas Passport for Hong Kongers. The Foreign Ministry spokesperson Zhao Lijian said that from the 31st of January, China will no longer recognize the said passport as a travel and identification document. The United Kingdom has said that it is acting in response to a national security law imposed by China last year. The law has devastated Hong Kong's democracy movement and has also shredded freedoms that were meant to last at least for 50 years from 1997, that is the handover year from Britain to China. The security law was imposed in Hong Kong last June in response to the 2019 protest. Mass arrests of pro-democracy figures have followed. Some have had to flee Hong Kong to other nations, including Britain. All right, now to give us more insights into what all of this, of course, means, we are joined in by our correspondent Richard Kimber, who's joining us live from Hong Kong. Thank you very much indeed, Richard, for joining us on this broadcast on WION. And let me begin by asking you this. The Chinese administration, in response to what the British government said about the BN passport status of the residents of Hong Kong, has said that it will no longer recognize the British National Overseas Passport that the people of Hong Kong have.
That's right. At the moment, this is really a symbolic move in opposition to the UK offering a pathway to citizenship to so many Hong Kongers. The reason at the moment it's only a symbolic move is because these BNO passports are no longer really used by the vast majority of Hong Kongers as their primary travel document. If you need to come in and out of Hong Kong, you'll either use your Hong Kong passport or you'll just have to use your Hong Kong ID card. I've got one here. This is just a basic identity card. It's all you need to come in and out of Hong Kong. If you're a Hong Konger who wants to go to China, similarly, you can just use your China identity card. I'm holding one of those here. So in both cases, you don't need a British National Overseas Passport to make either of those trips. These passports really are a bit of an obsolete handover from the time when Hong Kong was indeed handed over from the UK back to China. So they're not really used for any practical purpose. Some Hong Kongers have been using BNO passports in the past when they've travelled overseas, because in some cases the BNO passport has given you a better visa access than your Hong Kong passport would have done. But nowadays that's not the case either. The Hong Kong passport actually has better visa access globally than the BNO passport does anyway. So really at the moment this is only seen as a symbolic gesture. The crucial detail which we're waiting on is whether or not China will actually say that this in fact will later mean that for anybody who's going to the UK using their BNO status, they themselves may have their dual citizenship rescinded. That will be a much bigger move by China, because it will mean that any Hong Konger who's leaving to go to Britain, potentially seeking citizenship, may find that they can't come back and still be a Hong Kong citizen. That will be a much bigger announcement. For the moment, just the BNO passport seen mainly as a symbolic gesture.
Right, that's interesting. So there's a lot of legal tangle that is involved in the varieties of identity cards and the passports that are held by the residents in Hong Kong. The question that I want to ask you, Richard, is, when the British government said that those who have this British National Overseas Passport, how many people was the British government actually expecting to perhaps give citizenship if these people, these residents of Hong Kong, wanted to now shift to the United Kingdom?
Well, the UK government has said that it estimates that around 300,000 Hong Kongers will take advantage of this scheme and move to the UK within the next 5 years. The actual scheme itself is eligible for far more people than that. Initially, this scheme was opened up to anybody who had a physical BNO passport. Because so many people have not bothered renewing them in the last 10 or 15 years, that meant there weren't so many people in Hong Kong that still had one. But then the UK government expanded that and said anybody who is eligible for these passports, you don't actually have to have one anymore, but if you have the status of owning one of these, you can still come. That opened this up much more widely to around 3 million Hong Kongers. Then the UK government expanded it even further and said that you could also bring your dependents, your children, your parents and potentially your grandparents to the UK as well. So now the figure of people who are potentially eligible to take this UK offer is above 5 million. That's 2/3 of the total population of Hong Kong. So clearly if everybody took this offer, it would have a devastating impact on the Hong Kong population. But realistically that's not going to happen, and the UK government, as I say, expecting around 300,000 people in the next 5 years. There's been no official estimate from Hong Kong or from China as to how many people might leave, but the UK government expecting around 300,000.
Right now, you've been speaking to the local people in Hong Kong. What is it that they have to say about this BNO passport, which the Chinese government has said that from the 31st of January, they would no longer recognize?
Well, the first thing is there's many people who have been talking about the idea of leaving. Many people have been considering this BNO passport scheme as the best option of all the countries that have offered some kind of better system for Hong Kongers to leave. There's a system in place in Canada and in Australia. The US has also improved its asylum offer for Hong Kongers looking to leave. But the UK one, clearly the best of all of them because it's offering a more direct pathway to citizenship. The response from Hong Kongers with regards to China's kickback on the BNO passport, as I say, largely not taking it too seriously because many people are not using these passports anymore, and even those who are planning to leave to go to the UK don't expect that they'll ever use that passport to try and come back to Hong Kong nor to go to China. As I say, they'll still have these two cards that I showed you earlier in order to make that type of trip possible. The big concern, as I mentioned earlier, is really whether or not China ups the ante, if you like, and then places further restrictions on Hong Kongers who are seeking UK citizenship by saying that they're no longer able to be a Hong Kong and therefore a Chinese national if they choose to take UK citizenship. That would mean they potentially can't come back to Hong Kong so easily.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed, Richard Kimber, for joining us from Hong Kong and getting us insights into this very complex and legal, but some would also say pretty symbolic, tussle between Hong Kong and the United Kingdom. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.